Hello chicos, chicas! Last game of the World Championship match, at least as far as the classical games are concerned, and I'm very late with this recap, and the reason for that is because the players decided to play the longest game of the match, and let's face it, I could not muster the energy to do this recap at 2:30 in the morning, so hopefully this is going to be your prologue into what is about to come. So, if you know what I mean, wink wink. So let's have a look at what happened in game 12 with Ding behind the white pieces and Nepo playing black. They went back to the Nimzo, which was a very interesting choice. I predicted the Catalan wasn't to be. And Ding Liren came up with this bishop d2 line, which has been quite trendy lately. Quite frankly, I don't really think that this could cause serious problems for black, but it is a popular choice nowadays, and it's by no means a bad move. d5 was played, a3 was played, and Nepo went back to e7. As you can see, the structure now is very reminiscent of a queen's gambit declined, with the important difference that this bishop got stuck behind the pawns, which is precisely the reason why I'm a firm believer that this line can't be dangerous enough for black. We played c5 with black here, and I've got a little arrow already pointing to c1, and the reason for that is because I have a little comparison for you to offer to understand the position a little bit better, especially in light of takes and then queen c2. So b4 is obviously a move on the cards, but now we are really burdened by the bishop being on d2. And so the comparison I was going to show you so that we understand this whole shebang a little bit better is the Tarrasch. If you compare this position to the Tarrasch main line, incidentally my recommendation here in the 1d4 beginners white repertoire, you will find that here white's most common plan is indeed b4 followed by bishop b2. And you can see that the structure is exactly identical. But there is a big difference there, and that is that the bishop is not on d2, where it actually obstructs a lot of things. It covers the d file, it can't go any way, any direction, whereas on b2, it's a marvelously placed piece. And so if we use this as our reference point, then in my opinion, it's easy to say that there is no world where you can call this opening even a remote success from white's point of view. Now, kudos to Ding that despite the apparent, I can call it equality, he managed to make this position quite lively by a maneuver that I also promote in more than one variation of my 1d4 beginner course. So this is now definitely the time and place to promote my course, because he chucked out knight g5 here, which is an idea that I heavily rely on in my Ragozin line, as well as some of the Queen's Gambit declined variations, and using the fishing pole trap indeed, or trick, provoking h6 and playing h4. The problem here in this position from white's perspective, as far as I can see, is that because of the f6 knight is backed by the d7 knight, even if we offer a trade with knight e4, it's very difficult to eliminate the defenders in a way that we can create genuine threats against the black king on h7. And so this is basically just I wouldn't want to call it a bluff, but it's a situation where it comes to a standstill on the king's side that black won't take, at least for a while, but we also are not threatening with too much. And Nepo reacted well here with queen c7, and after the very timid bishop e2, not that there was much else to do, but maybe bishop d3 would have looked optically a little bit better, but that walks into knight c5. But then again, if knight c5, then the knight on f6 is no longer guarded, so we might have tricks there. Yeah, it's a complex story. My long story short is that after bishop e2, I really would have loved to see b6 here. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say something that many of you will probably find wrong, outright wrong in fact, and that is that I think the biggest miss that Nepo made in the entire game was this not playing b6. Yeah, I just said that, because you guys probably know, some of you at least, what happened in the game, and you go like, really? And I think yes, and the reason for that is because b6 had a very strong chance to give the position a vastly different character after bishop f3, bishop a6, which is a marvelous exchange sacrifice utilizing the king stuck in the middle. Now knight d3 is already game-winning threat, and after bishop c1, rook a8, this position is Nepo's bread and butter. He would have been, oh, like fish in water in a position like this, which, by the way, is objectively far better for black, because the white king is stuck in the middle. The d3 square is a constant worry. G5 on knight is about to begin to hang, because after take I can just jump into e4 at times. Not right now yet, but soon that is going to become a motif too. Long story short, I was very surprised alongside the commentators too that b6 wasn't played. Now it turns out that instead of bishop f3, we have got a much better move here, which is rook c1. With this cheeky threat of knight d5. This is a motif you never want to forget about in such structures when the queen is loose on c7. So for example, bishop b7 here is a tragic mistake. Well, not tragic yet, but yeah, knight d5 is definitely going to cause trouble in this position, because now queen c2 is, oopsie daisies, queen c2 is well met by the in-between knight e7 check. But of course, black here has got multiple ways to deal with the issue. Queen e5, queen b8 even, despite its appearance, is a perfectly fine move, followed by bishop b7 or bishop a6 if the bishop goes to f3. This would have been the very exciting way to go. Here Nepo's play went a little bit, in my opinion, towards the let's secure the draw. Played rook d8, followed it up by knight f8, securing h7, hanging the knight on g4, virtually forcing white into this trading sequence. And lo and behold, we have an absolutely dead even endgame. And there is no way on earth that on this level, with these quality players, this should go anywhere but to a draw. And yet, there was so much drama to be seen even after this position occurred. Right off the bat, Ding played something extremely weird that is very difficult for me to explain to myself, let alone to you guys, which was bishop b4, which is a very desperate looking attempt to get the dark squared bishops off, which admittedly, by the way, would make this e4 knight a heap better of a piece. But it comes at a very serious cost of damaging white's pawn structure without any reward whatsoever. I don't know, man. This just felt wrong to me. Bishop c3 looked like a very natural move, occupying the long diagonal and just, yeah, be happy. Switch the rook over to d2, start trading the heavies on the d file, and cruise towards the playoffs. Instead, bishop b4 was played, and now the game took a very sharp turn. Take, bishop c6, and now this is a serious problem. Still, I also don't know why Ding didn't play bishop f3 here, with the idea of knight d2 neutralizing the bishops. Again, it looked to me like a very logical way, but instead Ding went with knight c5. Now, this is something that I would like to compliment the Chinese GM for, despite the fact that I don't think this is objectively best. And that is that every single time he finds himself on the back foot, almost always Ding's way out of trouble is aggression and active counterplay at a cost of material, rather than my attempt of trying to defend everything. He goes like, nah, stuff it. I'm just gonna forego the g2 pawn and hope to create some counterplay against b7 and on the g file. And whilst I don't think this is best, but I certainly do think that the mentality is really, really cool. Bishop g2, rook g1, bishop back, absolutely forcing moves. Ding hunts down the b7 pawn. However, this is where the issue of the double pawns come in. It's not very often that I talk about double pawns, by the way, as baddies, but today is the day, because very clearly the one black pawn holds the two white ones on the queen side, and so this is essentially an extra pawn for black, because the 4 on the 3 on the other wing is actually quite meaningful. So now Nepo started playing really good moves. Rook d4, great. Rook c4, rook back, let's kick the knight out, doubling up. b4 all makes perfect sense, and knight d7 trying to reactivate the army. And here, according to the engine, the best choice would have been to continue exactly in that spirit that I praised Ding for. Once again, give up the pawn, trade at least one pair of heavies, and go into this rook ending or rook and bishop ending, very much akin to the game. King e3 is a nice move here, by the way. Actually my favorite, because now bishop b5 loses to king d4. And the rook has no squares. I think actually I entered this, didn't I? Yeah, I did. It's here. Ta-da! Look at me go. And none of the red squares are available for the rook. which means that black is losing a piece, or an exchange rather. Anyway, this was the engine's choice, and Ding here instead instead of king d2, he went rook g3. And that was the first moment when the bar really noticeably went down, and the commentators started to get really worried about Ding. And I have got very mixed feelings, because I was watching it live for the better part of the game, except for the last 20 moves, and I thought that this was a serious mistake. And then I started analyzing it, and I couldn't find at any given point, with the help of the engine, a clear-cut way to prove black's position to be not even winning, just clearly much better, right? Couldn't do it. Here Nepo played a very fast knight c5. I think he really should have spent a bit more time considering the consequences of g6, which would have denied these rooks all the activity that they got in the game. But again, after king d2, we would be transitioning into that endgame type that I showed you earlier. And there is an argument to be made that the rook on g7 is out of the game, and therefore is not so much a good defender. Bishop d3 was logical. Rook d8 was played, and this is where absolutely everything went bonkers online. When Nepo played king e2, it was attached with a question mark, and everyone went like, oh yeah, Nepo is winning now. And I was definitely part of that club who went like, yep, Nepo is gonna win this. And when I asked myself, why are you saying that, buddy? Oh, because the bar says so. And then I had a look at this. For the record, Nepo played rook c3, which was correct. Check king e7, and after rook g3, Nepo played e5, which was really disliked by the engine, the very engine that wants us here to play rook b3. And I tried to explain to myself why this rook b3 is so much better. Oh, by the way, rook b4, he would be essentially transitioning, no, because of b6. Right, so rook b3, king d2, and then rook d4. This was the engine's big idea. And the engine doesn't even reckon that king d2 is best, by the way, in this position, for the record. At least on lower depth, it recommends f4 to stop e5. But I wanted to figure out what was going on if I went ahead with this plan. And the engine, he claims huge advantage to white. And I'm just not seeing it. And call me crazy, yeah, I don't see where the win is. Whether I play king d2 or just play a pass, let's say they take this. And even after bishop b5, which again is not the engine's favorite move, I have no clue why the engine would want to win this with white. I just trade the rook a8 and off a draw. Exactly how the game went. So, I don't know, I might be missing something. Maybe I'm not using enough depth on my computer, but what is certain is that although I do agree with the sentiment that rather than hunting b5 back too soon, utilizing the power of the rooks is absolutely key, I don't see how black can make progress here after king c1, which is simply cutting off this check or cutting out that check. I just don't see how we can add more power to this attack. And so after a half day of the game, I see this entire contest very differently from how I saw it during. Because during I got carried away by the fluctuation of the bar and the commentary team's matching enthusiasm. But right now, and that's exactly why I said what I said earlier on about b6, for the life of me, I don't see how Nepo could have won this endgame. And I will show you the rest at least very briefly, because I think it's worthy of noting how the game ended. Rook h8, and here there was an absolutely delightful trick up Ding's sleeve. That's what he was banking on. And this, by the way, is a crucial drawing operation, and that is none other than b6, which is a beautiful clearance sacrifice, clearing the b5 square for the bishop, allowing black to play, white, excuse me, to play for this rook e8, bishop b5 check trick. So takes was played, takes was played, takes was played, bishop b5 check was played, and white forced the game into a one pawn down rook ending, which is dead draw, by the way, because there is no way to play this realistically for a win. Having said that, it requires good technique. On lower levels, I could see this being lost, but Ding is not gonna lose a rook ending like that. He's playing everything perfectly. He has got the rook behind the pawn. Black's rook is awkwardly stuck in front of it. This is exactly meant to be the other way around if we wanted to have winning hopes. Then they played 7 trillion moves, waiting. Eventually, Nepo committed to bringing the king across to kick the rook, but of course that's going to cost the pawn. Now at least he managed to get the rook out of underneath the pawn to the side, which is one step better. And here was the crucial move, f4, an absolutely brilliant recognition on Ding's part that more than likely this rook ending is turning towards what we call in the biz the FNH rook ending, which is one of the very rare cases when 2 pawn advantage in the rook ending is still a theoretical draw. So A and C and FH are drawn, and that's exactly, if I'm not mistaken, what this game was headed for, although I didn't watch it all the way to the end, so I don't exactly know. Yeah, it looks like we are headed that way. Yep. Not even yet, yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking to you about. I didn't see that it got this far, but that's precisely the point. FH rook ending, this is a theoretical draw. I'm pretty sure that variations of this that are meant to be theoretical draw, I could lose easily against the Grandmaster. The number one lesson that you need to learn about this endgame, which I read in the endgame book by Averbach, is that the correct policy of defenses is that you always want to locate the white king, or rather the defending king, underneath the further advanced pawn. So in that case, once again, we have got a perfect location for the king, and you keep the other pawn in check from the rook, whereas the other pawn is attacked by the king. Perfect defense, and to top it all, the black rook is extremely passive and stuck over here. I think this would be a draw even if the rook was here and the black king was on g6 covering h5, but that would be a harder hold. As is, this rook is incredibly passive. It's a tragically misplaced piece. Matter of fact, in the whole entire board, I couldn't find a worse square for the rook than that. And that just secures a very easy draw, because now obviously the pawns are separated from the king and Ding just mowed it down. So this, guys, is going to be my last classical game recap. This has been a draw, so the score is 6-all. And today, in less than 5 hours from when I am going to release this, we are going to have the rapid playoffs. We are going to celebrate a new world champion one way or another. Super exciting time, so stay tuned. And I do plan to make another video where I'm going to talk about what this world championship brought to the chess world, how it went, what we think, quality players, the whole shebang. So stay tuned. I will be back with more soon. Don't forget to sub, to like, to super thank me if you can, and I will be back with more soon. Bye.